Alex, thank you for coming on the Easy Prey podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Great. I know that Snopes has a long history. It seems to be one of the few sites that I have used for over 20 years. I think you guys have been around 25 years now or so. I remember using it back in the early days of the internet when people were sending out email chains of, hey, if you respond or do this, you'll get that, and don't forget to pass this on to 10 of your friends, back before social media. And then definitely since the launch of social media, I've definitely seen a lot of those kind of hoaxes and things going on social media where it's, hey, if you like, comment, or share this, Bill Gates is going to give you $10,000. That's an awful lot of people. So can you give me some background of Snopes and its origin story?
Yeah, so Snopes has been around for a long time. We say our founding date's either 1994 or 1995, depending on how you look at it. In 94, it was sort of part of the Usenet group dedicated to urban legends, and Snopes was David Mickelson's username on that. And he sort of then spun it off with his then wife into Snopes.com. And I guess in the original days, you could say it was definitely a folklore kind of urban legend based website. Sort of those weird things everyone hears, but nobody's really dug into to get to the bottom of them. That was how it got its start. And it's been trucking along ever since. Lately, the mission has become a little bit broader. We deal a lot with social media misinformation, a lot of political stuff, and also we've begun investigative work as well, sort of looking into the larger scale actors that promote and push misinformation. So the mission and, the size of the staff have grown over time. And, right now it's an exciting and tiring place to work for sure.
Yeah, I should mention that when we're recording this, it's March 20th. We're in the midst of the growth of the coronavirus, COVID-19 in the U.S. and around the world. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. And I'm sure there's a lot of misinformation going on around that, a lot of hoaxes, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt, which really is a breeding ground for hoaxes and misinformation. So have you guys seen a large boom in kind of the usage of your site with social media coming into fruition? With Facebook and Twitter?
That's sort of a harder, yes. I was first hired at Snopes in October of 2016, so right before the 2016 election. And that was sort of remarkable timing to join Snopes because right after that election, fake news became this huge buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
Fact-checking became sort of a front and center issue. So what we've seen, I think, is sort of an increased politicization of the fact-checking process, even when it's not political stuff that we're working on. I think social media, without question, enables misinformation to travel in ways that are, unquantifiably faster than it used to through emails and other things. So yeah, it's new tactics. The tactics are always changing in terms of how misinformation gets around. So in a sense, I'm sure social media, drove a noticeable change before I joined the company, but I will say that the way social media is used now in our current political climate has absolutely altered the way we approach our work.
Yeah. It has to be a very interesting business to be in, dealing with fake news before it was labeled fake news.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the biggest all-time, most popular hoaxes on Snopes?
Well, without question, the most popular, most viewed, most shared is it's the claim that posting something on your Facebook wall will allow Facebook or legally prevent Facebook from using your material. It just, I mean, it's been going on for, since the early 2010s, but people are still always visiting that, page. Whenever it's sort of a slow news week, that's typically what's getting a lot of the views still.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one that I've surprisingly seen a lot of people I know post on
it's
Facebook,
wild.
and it even ends up on like
Yeah,
Instagram and Twitter, and it's
it has. Yeah.
like this has been a story for as long as social media has been, well, and probably not that long, but it's been around for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
To think that it keeps resurfacing over and over again is kind of funny to me.
Yeah. It's a constant sort of source of bemusement for us as well. Another one that's I wouldn't say it's an all-time popular fact check by any means, but one that is like similarly always in the background, always being shared, is this claim that cosmic rays are going to pass through Earth and cause widespread destruction tonight. It's always they always say tonight, and it's like, what, when was this posted or whatever. And it's based on a completely made up version of what science is. And I debunked it. It was like a very I don't know, it's fairly straightforward debunk from a scientific standpoint, but yeah, it's like one of the most shared things I've ever written, and it's just because mostly in India, it goes viral on WhatsApp pretty much like at least once a month, in some sense or another. So yeah, it's that's another weird one.
Is it that there's this kind of thought that it's something that the government doesn't want us to know and that they're hiding it from us? Is that kind of one of those components that reoccurs in these sort of hoaxes?
That is the underlying theme to any sort of conspiracy-based hoax, or it's also the sort of implied theme in yeah, you're right, in many disinformations, the idea that there is a truth that's out there, but you, a lowly member of the public, don't deserve to hear it. But luckily, your friend's uncle's brother's girlfriend's sister has a friend, and they've got the real deets. And just sign up for my email list, and you'll be able to get that. Yeah, so that's one of the problems we face. And so I was originally hired as Snopes' science writer. I'm now a science writer and an investigator, but that's a massive component of scientific misinformation and health misinformation as well. It's one of the most challenging aspects to deal with. So, if you want to debunk something and really reach the people that don't believe it, it's hard to cite things like the CDC or the FDA because they're part of the deep state, allegedly. And so, you can sell so much crap on the internet by claiming that it's something the FTC or the FDA is hiding, and that's such a powerful. I mean, that's how Alex Jones funds his website.
Yeah, and that is just recent news that he doesn't have. He was claiming to have a COVID-19 cure. And
Yeah,
just
not
the other day, the government is coming after him saying, you're going to kill people if you keep doing this.
right.
Be quiet. And of course,
Yeah.
I suppose lots of people see that as, well, that's proof that it really is.
Right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in their eyes. So that's a whole line of thought that I think has become more potent now that we have social media, just because you can share rumors more quickly. And also, so I mean, Snopes itself gets occasionally labeled as part of the deep state, which is confusing because sometimes we're also labeled two people in a basement with a cat. So you got to pick one or the other, kind of. But yeah, like people will claim we're a CIA operation and we're just there to sort of promote the government line, and Obviously, that's not true as well. But yeah, this is a potent method to sort of push stuff online.
Yeah, you just claim that the people that are debunking it are in cahoots with the people that are propagating the hoax or
Yeah,
the
exactly.
quote unquote truth.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've kind of set up. So what are some of the common components that you see, the themes that you see over and over in hoaxes and urban legends?
Uh, okay, so it really does depend if you're talking about a hoax, an urban legend, a political claim. Uh, a component of
Well, let's go through each of them. Let's start with the
Yeah,
hoaxes.
yeah. So hoaxes are designed oftentimes in this day and age to troll somebody, to trick somebody, to be like, oh, you dumb, you fell for it, this kind of thing. And it's hard. I mean, hoaxes, I would say, generally are viral, generally involve a claim that involves a certain amount of sort of schadenfreude, against somebody else, that allows it to attract a certain specific audience that might share it. Hoaxes are broader; they're a little harder to define in a universal term. I think the easiest to define is sort of political misinformation, the easiest to identify, because it's that kind of thing where uh, if a story feels so perfect for your personal viewpoint, your personal political beliefs, your personal worldview about health, whatever it is, if something speaks directly to that just verifies that worldview you have, it's probably because somebody is directly targeting you with that message,
Mm-hmm.
because they you'll share it. Social media allows people to target stuff more effectively now. So I always say the first thing in sort of recognizing this information is, does this seem too good to be true, in a sense?
Like
And
it overly resonates with you.
it's like it overly resonates. Like, um, yeah, you name it. If you don't like President Trump, and you believe, whatever, you can sort of just target that audience, because people will believe it already. Oftentimes I'll debunk things and people will be like, all right, yeah, but it's still probably something there. It's like, fine, but factually, you didn't say anything that was true. Um, yeah, urban legends I deal less with, but well, urban legends and hoaxes together. It's sort of a colleague of mine, Dan Egon's area. He does a lot of sort of memes and visual stuff. And visual hoaxes, a dime a dozen on the internet.
Yeah, with the development of Photoshop and effects, you can make a pretty good spacecraft.
You can do all sorts of fun stuff with Photoshop, and it's normally pretty easy to figure out. You reverse image search something, see where it came from. You see if an image is being shared relevant to a certain current event, but the image is actually from 5 years ago. Mismatches like that are that's another great way to sort of spot visual hoaxes in that sense. Also, if like there's a shark in the water during a hurricane, that somebody like in a place where you wouldn't expect it, like a highway or a subway tunnel, that's fake. It's the most popular thing to share after a hurricane every single time, man. These sharks roaming the streets, but yeah, that's always going to be fake. Help you out there.
I know, like when it comes to like the visual hoaxes, there's a YouTube channel that I don't even know if he's still producing content, but it was like Captain Disillusion or something like that. And he actually goes back, and because he's done so many effects, and I think from his career, that he's able to say, "Oh, well, I see this explosion in this video, and it just happens to match this."
Oh,
It
yeah,
matches this stock explosion
yeah.
exactly. So like, how could the how
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't matter what else is true in the video or not true if the if you can tie back one component of it to a stock imagery or a stock
Right.
graphic, a stock video, then you really have to question everything.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a big controversy yesterday about uh, One American News Network, which is a conservative cable news program, and one of their reporters sort of had made all these claims that were essentially attributed to like an anonymous deep state source. It was just somebody on Twitter sending her messages. But sort of in that light, one of the funnier things is if you look at the news segment on TV that first presented those claims, they actually use a picture from 2001: A Space Odyssey of the actor who played the captain of the ship
Oh, interesting.
to be a stand-in for this deep sea source or whatever. It's just like I just it doesn't feel like that's living in reality. But yeah, stock imagery, things that clearly aren't associated with that, all good clues.
So, is there a particular demographic that you see targeted with hoaxes and whatnot, or is it just different hoaxes target different demographics?
I think it's different hoaxes target different demographics. In general, studies have suggested that older Americans are much more older humans in general are much more susceptible to online fake news than younger generations. So I think
I'll interrupt. I've heard that, and I question. So just during our conversation, I start now to go, well, gee, I didn't fact check that story. Is that real science, or is or is that not?
No, that there are lots of studies in fact checking, and unfortunately, not a lot of them agree. But that's a pretty solid finding.
Interesting.
It's interesting to see that. So some of the investigative work we've done has been catching foreign actors who pretend to be patriotic Americans for the purpose of building an audience, selling stuff, collecting email addresses, credit card, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think the most obvious version of directly targeting sort of older Americans in that case was this network of pages based out of Ukraine. They were just sharing the most like nostalgic, pleasant memes from 1950s time. It's like pictures of like like some old Mustang being like, this is how it used to be in the good old days, blah blah blah. So it's like it's all content like that, memes like that, and then occasionally links outside to somewhere else, or throwing down the line political content in there once you've built enough of an audience. We don't know necessarily what the end game is. It's either financial or political, though. But yeah, these memes were like a perfect example of just like clear targeting of one specific audience. And we've seen that in other cases as well. But, then there is a whole brand of political misinformation that's typically targeted towards, it depends. It's either targeted towards making the other side look bad or making your side look good. I don't think that necessarily has as strong a demographic component, just because depending on what social media platform you are, you're going to find that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think
anywhere or an email change.
And it seems to be part of human nature that the further left or the further right, the more accusations are hurled at the other side, or my side. Yeah, exactly. My side can't possibly be wrong because they're my side.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really entrenched thinking, and yeah, it's fascinating and frustrating to watch sometimes. But yeah, it's true.
So you were talking about, like, I'm curious because you've done some investigative reporting. Do you find, like, what do you find is like the motivations for some of these hoaxes? I mean, I could think back to one. I don't necessarily call it a hoax, but maybe it's a good illustration of a motivation. Was the guy who launched the Storm Area 51 group. And I heard interviews with him, and he was like, it was just a practical joke. I didn't think anyone would take, at some point he was saying, I didn't think anyone would take me seriously. Sure. And then, a very large number of people, signed up or said they were going to go, and much fewer showed up in reality.
Sure.
But you can see, like, there are certain ones where I just wanted to see if people would fall for it. I just wanted to do something funny, maybe not even intending it as a hoax, but I just wanted to be funny. What are some of the other motivations for these things do you see?
Yeah, that's an interesting point you raised first. The sort of notion that, oh, I was just kidding. That's a huge. I think there are legitimately people who like to make jokes and kid and I think probably the Area 51 thing seemed pretty obviously tongue in cheek when the first Facebook thing was posted, but the defense, like I was just kidding, or even like using satire websites to promote misinformation. This is a huge problem we face because people will just be like, "How dare you fact check my obvious humor that
Yeah.
I am." So yeah, general tomfoolery is definitely a motivating factor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Always has been. Financial is generally another big one, and there are many ways that misinformation can facilitate financial means. Oftentimes, just through sort of ad impressions. You write something crazy. It goes viral for a day. You know, you got a minor cash cow just out of that one brief thing. Unfortunately, whatever was written there is going to stay on the internet in some way, be shared around. You have to trace it out, and then 5 years later, I'll have to figure out who originally wrote it, that kind of thing. Financial is definitely a big one. And then, and I would say, frankly, probably the most common
Mm-hmm.
motivator for intentional misinformation. But, and then political, obviously, is a whole other breed that comes in, and those motivations are generally pretty clear, I think. But yeah, those are the big three. Well, no, and then I would add like the genuine innocent spreader of misinformation. Somebody genuinely heard something from somebody they thought was reliable, and they shared it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was wrong, and it went viral.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to tell. The level of intent behind somebody who's sharing this information. There was a viral post about COVID-19, sort of the nickname now, the uncle with a master's degree post. Begins, hey, my uncle with a master's degree, in China has all these tips for preventing the spread of COVID-19. And most of it, at least originally, was super wrong. But it got, I think, probably like at least over 500,000 shares at this point, and was featured all over the world. And the BBC interviewed him recently. I guess he is thinking he didn't do anything wrong. There's no misinformation here. He's just trying to spread the good word,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see that as valid. But on the other hand, this same person used to spread a lot of political misinformation regarding the whole Brexit thing. He was a pro-Brexit, anti-Islam activist, he described himself as. And, his misinformation is cataloged in other scientific papers. So you look at it, it's like, I don't know. I truly don't know if he thinks he's part of the solution or if he's just excited to have 500,000 people share his post.
It's,
Hard to tell.
and I suppose one of those other motivations is some people just want to be, in some weird way, they want to be famous, they want to be noteworthy, they want to be in the news,
definitely.
and they don't really care what it is or why it is, as long
You're part
as
of the story.
they want to be part of the story, and so they're injecting themselves into the story by creating a story.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what are some of the? So, speaking of coronavirus, what are some of the at the time that you looked at them were hoaxes, which may may well come
Yeah.
true at some point in the future? Like a good example is my wife had someone forward her a voicemail message. This was probably like 3 weeks ago. That was like, "Hey, I know someone in the government, and Trump is planning on enacting martial law in the next 48 hours, so go out and stock up on stuff." And this was like 3 weeks ago when
Sure.
it was when I don't know we were doing anything in the US at that time other than, hey, just make sure you're washing your hands, or watch the
Yeah.
news. But now, when states are going into lockdown and doing orders of hey, stay at home, those things become almost like, well, maybe that could be true now. So, what are some of the let's talk about some of the more outlandish hoaxes that you've seen about coronavirus?
The more outlandish ones. So I've been doing a lot of the specific sort of science claims, health claims. I would argue it's a tough one. I would say the notion that holding your breath for 10 seconds can diagnose COVID-19 is
Okay.
probably the most ridiculous scientific claim that I've run into. And it's still, who was it? I forget. A Fox News personality said that on air recently. But anyway, it defies logic to think that that would be a diagnostic test, and it also pushes this notion that a clean bill of health diagnostically means you're no risk to a broader society epidemiologically. But yeah, that one is ridiculous. I mean, for reasons like just like the mechanisms that they claimed, saying like, oh, if it's hard to hold your breath, you've probably got, this condition. But it turns out that condition's caused by coughing. And if you're coughing so much, you'd probably already know you had something. You don't need to hold your breath to prove that. That was a weird one. Another claim that, there's a lot of these sort of self-check and cure things. Sipping water every 15 minutes prevents a coronavirus infection. Yes, hydration is important to maintain a healthy immune system and all that, but this specific claim was that you would be washing the virus that might be in your mouth down into your digestive tract, where it will be destroyed. And yeah, it would be destroyed in your digestive tract, but if you've already got it in your throat and you're breathing for a period of 15 minutes, you're not, there's no way that's saving you from an upper respiratory infection. So yeah, sometimes it's sort of things that might sound like, oh, that makes sense to me. I'm like, yeah, like that's a great idea. Those typically go viral.
And I assume there's sometimes even dangerous ones that happen.
I would argue those are both dangerous to a certain extent. The uncle with a master's degree post that I talked about earlier, I think for the most part wasn't like all that dangerous, except for, again, another claim of a diagnostic test. In that case, it was the assertion was basically if you have a wet cough, you're fine. You don't need to check it out. Yes, wet cough is a more rare, side effect of the disease, but or symptom of the disease, but it is a symptom of it. You can look at the CDC website. You can look at the World Health Organization studies. They summarize all of the symptoms that everyone's reported in. A wet cough is on there. So if you don't, you've got some wet cough, you're going around thinking you're fine. That's incredibly dangerous. And so yeah. Trying to think, a lot of my colleagues sort of did a lot of the earlier, coronavirus is a hoax sort of debunking. So I can't speak to those quite as much. There also, the COVID stuff mixes in with political stuff, claims of profiteering from COVID-19 testing, that kind of thing, have also been sort of a big feature of some of the claims going around.
Yeah, and I know I did see I'll call it a response video. There's a physician that I watch on YouTube occasionally that he talks about people that have done some risky behavior, or there's some behavior that has happened in their life, and here's what happened when they got to the ER. And one of the things that I saw a recent video from him about someone who drank isopropyl alcohol in an attempt to, hey, this will cure me from, this will make me free of COVID-19 because I was out with a bunch of people, so now let me do this. And I didn't watch the end. I don't know if the guy died, but it was, when there's medical claims, we really, really, really have to be really careful
Yeah,
about following advice of people that aren't physicians, that aren't doctors, that aren't
yeah,
specifically directing us, who know our existing health conditions and know about us,
yeah, absolutely.
and just taking
Um,
some random advice.
yeah, there was another one that I didn't do this one. A colleague of mine, Lithuania, did. She debunked the idea that if you just blow hot air, like really hot air, into your mouth for an extended period of time, you'll be, that'll kill it.
Interesting.
Um, which is, which is not true. And it's probably going to burn your throat or something, or just, yeah, it's just not a reasonable scientific argument to be making. But yeah, and fake news in general. That's sort of that's one of my beats that I'm on. So obviously that type of thing will exist after COVID-19 has passed
Yeah.
as well.
So let's cycle back to these sort of things in general. Um, First we'll talk about like where should people go to confirm these sort of things if they think it's a hoax, if they're not sure if it's a hoax. What should they kind of? How do you how should the layman who's not an investigative journalist
Sure.
try to
Well,
figure
I
out
mean,
to wade through these things?
yeah. So I think there are a couple of strategies you can take. The simplest is just to only read sort of reputable sources, and as much maligned as the mainstream media may be, the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, LA Times, uh, do great reporting that is factual. They have strong science desks, strong medical desks. Government agencies that are concerned with the public interest provide generally up to date information about anything. So in general, trusted news sources, trusted governmental agencies that provide data that show their work are good. Another sort of approach, if you want to be a little bit more active in it, is like, let's say you've been sent a article from a news or a website that you've never heard of, and it has some claims that are concerning to you. Um, you know, the first thing you should do is see if the headline matches anything that's actually said in the text of the article. Oftentimes there's a mismatch because the
Mm-hmm.
headline gets the shares. So if there's a mismatch there, you just have to disregard the headline. You want to make sure. So let's say that article that you don't know where it came from cites an expert or another outlet. It's called sort of lateral reading. Open up another tab, see who that guy is.
Mm-hmm.
Is this guy selling some crazy supplement on a weird website, or is he an established professional with a history that you can vet? Same goes for an outlet if they're citing another outlet this year. So you can trace things without going hardcore investigative. You can just like assess who the sources are in a random given bit of text and see if there's any funny business, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it really does depend. Sometimes news moves so rapidly, and there's this period of uncertainty during, national tragedy, shootings, epidemics, that sort of thing, where there is not a lot of information out there, period. And there's a lot of claims that haven't been addressed by anyone. That's sort of where we're still at with COVID-19. That's challenging because there's a vacuum of information, and that's sort of where a lot of people can create their claims. So in those situations, I think you just have to take a step back, not share
Mm-hmm.
much, and accept the uncertainty and realize that if somebody's reporting something with certainty in that time, they're probably full of crap or misinformed.
Mm-hmm. So really, kind of like maybe with COVID-19, we're living in that window of uncertainty, fast moving
I think so.
emotion,
Yeah, yeah,
fear,
yeah.
uncertainty, and doubt. The FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yep.
we're kind of living in that. And I was always kind of thinking, like, whenever I saw people posting stuff, it's like, no, take a deep breath.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, if it's true, it will come out that it's true. If it's not true, it'll come out that it's not true. But be careful not to react out of haste to every little
Yeah,
bit of thing that's keying on our emotions. And that's a really hard thing to do when we're in the midst of a crisis.
it's true. I mean, it's human nature to try and want to help other people. If somebody hears something that's troubling to them, I think there's a very sort of positive instinct to tell people that you care about that thing. And in the age of the internet, telling people you care about sometimes means telling a couple million people that thing in the end.
Yeah.
And I think especially in those sort of vacuum circumstances, just don't. People need to realize that even a good intentioned share of information that comes without a named source that's vague in its claims, you don't need to share that. If anything, you're making things worse, not better. And I think that's a human nature problem. I don't. It's not. It's certainly not a problem that's easily solved with technology, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, people can always go to Snopes.com and look there.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention my own employer, Snopes.com, one of the aforementioned credible news organizations that you can turn to. Absolutely.
And I really like that you guys, like, the goal is to try to provide truth and clarity as opposed to we have a viewpoint that we believe in and we're trying to we have an agenda. That the agenda really there is, what is truth, and the history of the site shows that's what the agenda has been, is reality, is calm, is
we like to figure out what the uncertainty is, figure out what's known, and lead the reader through our work, the work that we did to demonstrate it. Because, and it's unfortunate, a lot of times people will open up Snopes and just see the true or the false or the rating, kind of go with that. But what we do in our writing, and I think it's over-explained compared to perhaps other newspapers, is the sort of, we go through the source of the origin of the claim, then we go through our process of addressing different aspects of that. We say we talked to this person, we went to this website, it's all laid out step by step. And so we always say, don't take our word for it. Take the argument that we presented and check for yourself, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, I think that's really good advice, and I appreciate the people that have always had that attitude of, I've done the work, here's the work that I did, but go check it for yourself. That they're not holding, to me, anytime someone's holding up a sign saying, trust me, trust me, trust me, well, why are you working so hard to get me to trust you? Is there something I should, that always,
Exactly.
that always rings a warning sign in my head when someone is, trust me, trust me, trust me. Like, well, what is it you're trying to get me to not to see? Why do you think I wouldn't trust you?
Yeah, is there a lot of talk going around about your untrustworthiness? And if so, I hear about that first.
Well, Alex, if people want to follow Snopes, I assume you guys are on social media with the latest stories. What's the accounts that we should be following?
So, Snopes.com on the internet. We have Snopes on Facebook. We also have a group you can join to submit misinformation you want debunked as a group, though they're both named Snopes and Snopes Group. We've got a Twitter account that is Snopes, and we have an Instagram account that it's almost Snopes. I forget. It might be Snopes.com or Snopes.com. I'll get that to you, though.
I'll make sure that we include the right one on the link there for you.
Yeah, there's somebody got Snopes like 10 years ago, and we haven't been able to get it, I don't think. But we're also on Instagram. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate the work that you guys do. I've been a fan of the site for decades now, and I look forward to continuing to read what you guys have to offer and help us to be safe and help us not to panic.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me and spreading the good news about Snopes.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.